Okay, so imagine this. You're on a routine hike, a mountain you've climbed before. But as night falls, that familiar trail just dissolves. It turns into this terrifying journey, a trip into a world that exists right alongside ours, but just out of sight. Today, we're going to dive into one hiker's absolutely chilling ordeal on Indonesia's Mount Lawu. It's a story that really blurs the line between a hike and a full-on haunting.
And that right there, that's the exact moment when our hiker, Condra's, reality just completely unraveled. A phantom market, appearing literally out of thin air on a desolate mountainside. So how in the world did he get there? And maybe the bigger question is, who or what were its inhabitants?
All right, so this whole thing kicks off in July of 2023. A guy named Kadanar and his friend Ikat decide to hike up Mount Lawu. For them, this was supposed to be a totally standard climb, a mountain they already knew. What they had no idea about was that their timing was about to make this trip anything but ordinary.
Yeah, see, they had, by complete and utter chance, chosen to be on this sacred mountain during a night that is absolutely steeped in paranormal folklore. A night when the barrier between our world and, well, the next, is believed to be at its absolute thinnest.
And that night is called Malam Satu Suro. For a lot of people in Java, it is a really serious time for quiet reflection, for prayer, for rituals. It's a time you're supposed to be cautious. But for Chandra and Ichat, it was just another night to go camping on a mountain.
You know, the first little hint that something was off actually came from a park ranger. He was really insistent that they camp at post 3, even though they were experienced guys who could have gone further. They took his advice, set up their tent in that spot, and without knowing it, they basically placed themselves right in the middle of all the strange events that were about to unfold.
So as darkness fell at post 3, the whole atmosphere just began to shift. The normal sounds of the forest, the crickets, the wind, they were all replaced by something else. It was as if the mountain itself was waking up and whispering secrets from another time.
And this is where things just go completely off the rails. It starts at 8 p.m. Chandra peeks out of his tent and sees this terrifying stooped figure with impossibly long claws. Then it becomes this auditory assault. First, he hears Japanese voices coming from up the mountain. Just 5 minutes later, he hears this huge phantom crowd speaking some kind of ancient Javanese coming from below. And the grand finale? The unmistakable sound of horse-drawn carriages circling their tent. On a mountain trail. Makes no sense.
So eventually, Chandra has to, use the bathroom. He finally gets the courage to go outside, and he deliberately leaves his headlamp off, hoping he won't see anything else. But of course he does. Right across the path, there's this shape, darker than the night itself, just staring back at him with these glowing yellow eyes. He scrambles back inside the tent, and at this point, that feeling of being watched is just completely undeniable.
Okay, this brings us to the absolute peak of Chandra's experience. This is the moment where sleep offers zero escape. Instead, it plunges him right into the heart of the mountain's greatest and most terrifying legend.
He woke up, or at least he thought he woke up. It was still pitch black outside, but when he looked out of his tent, the familiar cliff face wasn't there anymore. In its place was this huge open plain filled with people, lights, and noise. He had woken up inside the infamous Pasar Setan, the phantom market of Mount Lawu. So he starts walking through this impossible place. He sees vendors and ancient clothing, men with bare chests and women in these old lace tops. But as he looks closer, he starts to see other figures dressed like hikers, except their gear is decades old. And their bodies are just horribly mutilated, as if they're the ghosts of people who died on the mountain with their fatal injuries on full display. And the vision hits this horrifying climax when Chandra sees his own friend Ikat suddenly bolt from their tent. He runs after him, catches up to him, only to see that Ikat has been completely disemboweled, his organs just spilling onto the ground. At that moment, Chandra lets out a scream of pure terror, and then he actually wakes up. For real this time. It's 4:30 a.m. His friend is sleeping peacefully right beside him, totally unharmed. Now you would think, okay, the sun's coming up, the nightmare is over, right? Nope, the mountain was not done with them yet. Their hike down turned out to be just as unnerving as the night before, with that strange influence just lingering in the daylight. So as they're hiking down, they start passing several groups of people dressed entirely in black. And these were not hikers. They didn't have any modern gear, just these trays of offerings.
They were moving with this silent, solemn purpose, and they completely ignored Chandra and Ikat as they passed by. Just super creepy.
Then things got really, really trippy. The last stretch of the trail, from post 1 to the base camp, should take about half an hour. Easy. For them, it took nearly 3 hours. They were walking and walking, but just not getting anywhere, as if the mountain itself was literally stretching time out around them.
Chandra finally realized they were trapped in some kind of loop when he saw the exact same piece of graffiti on a rock for the 3rd time. He knew something was deeply wrong. He stopped Ikat, and right there on the trail, they just started praying for safety, for a clear path. And get this, the effect was immediate. After they finished praying, they started walking again and reached the base camp in less than 15 minutes. The loop was broken.
So they made it off the mountain. They're safe. But the story is far from over. Because it's only when Chandra gets back home that all the terrifying little puzzle pieces start clicking into place, and he finds a chilling explanation for everything he went through. The first piece fell into place 2 days later. Just out of curiosity, they checked the Javanese calendar for the date of their hike. And there it was confirmed. They had been on Mount Lawu on the exact night of Malam Satu Sura, the one night of the year when the spirit world is said to be most active.
But that only explained the when, not why Chandra was the only one who saw everything. The final, really shocking explanation came from his grandmother. She told him that based on his Javanese birth date, he has this rare trait called tulang wangi, which literally means fragrant bones. It's believed to act like a beacon for supernatural entities.
And just like that, it all made a terrifying kind of sense. It wasn't just the sacred mountain or the mystical date. It was a perfect supernatural storm, the right place, the right time, and the one person with a natural magnetism for the paranormal. That's why Kondrata was pulled into the Phantom Market while his friend Ikak slept soundly, only vaguely remembering hearing some faint footsteps before drifting off.
Kandra's story leaves us with this really fascinating and frankly unsettling question. For him, it wasn't about believing in ghosts or looking for something spooky. It just seemed to be an innate part of who he is. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Is that veil between worlds thin for everyone on certain nights, or are some people just born with the ability to see right through it?